And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record.
First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We could both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves. And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period. That the Earth over the past X amount of years, and this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. No, I didn't read that article, but
yeah.
The scientists who are out there, I think...
I know, but there's a lot of money involved in that too, Bernie. That's part of the problem.
Joe Rogan called out Bernie Sanders during a podcast, and it stirred up a big reaction online. A lot of people, especially critics of Bernie, are now accusing him of being a hypocrite. They say he talks a big game about fighting climate change, but doesn't live by those same values himself. In the podcast, Bernie said climate...
What about the other the other lawsuit with the conversation that they had with Kamala Harris, where they edited the answers that she had to make it look more precise?
60 Minutes, they were suing 60 Minutes.
Yes.
Is, to my mind, historically, been around for a very long time. They're not infallible, but I think you look at most objective people will say 60 Minutes has a sterling reputation for investigative journalism. Are they wrong?
But that's not investigative journalism if you change someone's answers. If you ask her a question and she comes with a rambling answer that doesn't make sense, and you edit that out and insert another answer to a different question that seems more cogent.
Change is real and not a hoax. He pointed out that the last 10 years have been the hottest on record. But Joe pushed back, saying that the Earth's temperature has always gone up and down. He mentioned that the Washington Post had reported something unexpected, that over a certain number of years, the Earth has actually been in a cooling phase. According to Joe, the article showed this even though it went against the usual climate change narrative. Joe said, "Look at the end of the graph. It shows cooling." Bernie admitted he hadn't read the article, but insisted most scientists believe
you got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record.
First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We could both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves. And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period. That the Earth over the past X amount of years, and this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. No, I didn't read that article, but
yeah.
The scientists who are out there, I think...
I know, but there's a lot of money involved in that too, Bernie. That's part of the problem.
Climate change is a major problem. Joe also brought up something else: money. He said there's a lot of money involved in pushing the climate change message, which could make it hard to fully trust the intentions behind it. This moment really hit Bernie hard online. People pointed out how he talks about climate danger, but flies on private jets which use a lot of fuel and hurt the environment. That's why many are now questioning whether he truly believes in what he's saying, or if it's more about politics and image. Joe didn't just say Bernie was being hypocritical. He suggested that some people use climate change as a way to make money or gain power. And that's what really lit up social media. Joe Rogan called out Bernie Sanders, and it sparked a major online backlash. Many people are now saying Bernie talks about saving the planet and...
Last thing, Alyssa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, she said you shouldn't be using oligarch. It's over people's head. You've gotten criticized from other people. Free Beacon says Bernie Sanders spent $221,000 on private jets fighting the oligarchy tour paid for by friends of Bernie Sanders. that you've spent millions of dollars in campaign funds on private jet travel over the years. How do you push back on both of those things?
When's the last time you saw Donald Trump during a campaign mode at National Airport?
The rich, but doesn't actually live by those. Values.Joe said that some people use climate change not just to help the planet, but also to gain power, money, and attention. And that's when things started to make more sense to a lot of people. Bernie warns us about global warming, yet he flies around in private jets. In fact, reports say Bernie spent over $200,000 on private jet travel during just one tour, which was supposed to be about fighting the wealthy elite, the group that paid for it. Friends of Bernie Sanders. He's reportedly spent millions on private air travel over the years. When asked about it, instead of answering directly, Bernie brought up Donald Trump as if mentioning Trump makes his own actions okay. But many people are tired of that move. The real question is simple. How can Bernie say he's fighting rich elites while acting like one himself? How can he demand everyone else cut down on emissions and fly less when he's using private jets with no apology? People are seeing this. As a double standard, Bernie pushes others to live simply and reduce their carbon footprint. But he flies in luxury and lives in comfort. He even said he has no regrets about using private jets, which really upset people. It's not just about climate anymore, it's about fairness. Dave Rubin also joined the criticism, pointing out how Bernie's attitude suggests that only he has important things to do, while regular people flying to visit family or for work, apparently.
Oh, so Bernie has important to do, guys. You think Bernie Sanders should wait? You think Bernie Sanders should wait in line? Everyone else that's waiting in line at United, they have nothing to do. They have nothing important. They have no important business meeting to do. They have no important, they're going to fly to see grandma one last time. That's not important. He's a politician, guys. So why should he have to? On top of the fact that the amount of CO2 he is putting into the atmosphere is far, that Bernie Sanders has put into the atmosphere in all of the private flights he has taken is way more than I've taken 2 private flights in my life, and I don't feel guilty for either one of them, okay? But he is the one that's trying to guilt you while telling you you're destroying the environment, and how am I supposed to do it? I'm an important person, blah, blah, blah. You're a peon. He is the perfect living example of the hypocrisy and endless bull that is a Democrat socialist.
Don't matter. That hit a nerve, because Bernie is supposed to stand for the working class, not act above them. This has made many feel like Bernie. It's just another politician using big words to cover up a lifestyle that doesn't match what he tells others to. Do he give speeches about the environment and fairness? But his actions tell a different story. People are waking up to the difference between what he says and what he actually does. And they're not buying it anymore. That clip of Bernie Sanders talking about saving the planet while flying around in a private jet felt almost like a joke. Except it's not funny. He warns the public about climate change, but keeps using one of the most polluting ways to travel. What's worse is that many people still believe he's truly fighting for them, ignoring how his actions don't match his words.
What we're doing now is speaking to the American people and saying, you have got to be involved in this process, because if you are not, the planet that we're going to leave to our kids and our grandchildren will be significantly less habitable. 5 rallies in a week. The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United? Waiting, 30,000 people are waiting. That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future.
This is the same Bernie who used to criticize millionaires. But once he became one, suddenly millionaires weren't the problem anymore. Now it's the billionaires. He just changed the message to keep people angry and the donations coming in. It's a pattern, keep shifting the target to stay in the spotlight and keep support flowing. Then there's a moment when Bernie tried to defend the media after Donald Trump sued over an edited interview with Kamala Harris. Bernie said it was an attack on the free press. But Joe Rogan pointed out something important. What if the media had edited a Trump interview to make him sound smarter than he really was? Would Bernie still defend them? Probably not. He'd likely be on every news network.
I don't have those details. I don't know that I agree with your analysis of it. I don't know enough.
I think that's universally accepted that that's what they did.
Then you got to tell me why he is suing ABC. Why he's suing Meta.
Let's just talk about the 60 Minutes
no,
one
but
first.
No, but it's not just
we could go to ABC, but I'm not aware of that one either.
George Stephanopoulos said something that he didn't like. But the point is,
what did Stephanopoulos say?
I can't remember. It was I honestly don't remember. But
I think what he was saying was factually incorrect about the results of one of Trump's trials.
All right. Guess what? If I were to sue everybody who said things that were factually incorrect about me, I'd be suing people zillions of times.
Calling it a scandal. So why defend it when it helps your side? That's not standing up for journalism. It's using it when it benefits you and ignoring it. When it D's singled quotes to Joe Rogan held up a mirror to Bernie's behavior, and it clearly struck a nerve. The facts didn't line up with Bernie's message, and people noticed. It's not about Bernie's age, it's about the fact that someone with so much experience should know better. Instead of growing wiser, Bernie keeps using the same tactics, blaming others, dodging questions and saying one thing while doing another. He talks like a man of the people, but lives like the people he criticizes. He calls for climate action, but flies in private jets. He defends the media only when they're on his side. At this point, it's not about leadership or honesty, it's about keeping up appearances. And more people are starting to see through it. It's disappointing because
So Bernie's arguments get wrecked when his facts get checked. Our video of the day comes from the Joe Rogan podcast, where Bernie Sanders stopped by to remind the world he's 7,000 years old. And that's almost as old as Greg's jokes about The View.
Someone like Bernie Sanders, with so many years in politics, should be setting a good example, not falling short of it. When asked if he's going to run for president again, Bernie pointed out that he's 83 years old. The host reminded him that he's only a few years older than Joe Biden and still seems sharp. But the pause in Bernie's response was telling. It was awkward, and it felt like even he wasn't sure if running again would be a good idea. Honestly, it would be better for both Bernie and his party if he didn't run again. At this point, taking a step back would show maturity and self-awareness. The Democratic Party doesn't need another figure who preaches big ideas but doesn't live. By them, someone who talks about fighting the system while clearly being part of it. Voters are tired of empty slogans and broken promises. Bernie has become a symbol of that gap between words.
Are you going to run for president again?
I am 83 years of age.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm not sure the American people will be enthusiastic on somebody's 108.
You're still very with it.
Thank you.
You are.
Well,
I mean, you're a couple years older than Biden.
Yeah.
Right? Think of that.
Yeah.
You could be off a lot worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
I haven't seen a pause that awkward since they told Greg he was too short to ride Space Mountain.
And actions. If he ran again, it would only stir up more political drama and arguments within his own party. And let's face it, his personal contradictions would become easy targets for critics distracting from real problems that need attention. What the party really needs is honest. New leadership with real ideas for the future. If Bernie truly cares about the causes he talks about, then it's time for him to step aside and let someone else lead. And that wraps up this video. If you liked it, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.